Namo Manjushaya. Hello, dear YouTube Sangha. Welcome to episode 3 of the series Dispelling Individualism. In this episode, I will be discussing the role of anti-intellectualism in America's populist right through a Buddhist critique. America's populist right has long been associated with a rejection of intellectualism, a trend that has accelerated in recent years. This disdain for intellectual expertise is not merely a political stance, but a deeply ingrained cultural attitude that has roots in history, religion, and the broader structures of society. Anti-intellectualism within this context is a form of resistance to knowledge, a rejection of reasoned discourse, and a prioritization of narrow self-interest over collective well-being. Through this rejection, the populist right undermines the very foundation of democratic decision-making, threatens societal cohesion, and exacerbates global crises. This video uses a Buddhist framework to critically examine the populist right's anti-intellectualism, drawing on the work of Richard Dawkins and Michel Foucault to explain how these attitudes function as cultural memes and becomes institutionalized by engaging with Buddhist teachings on wisdom and interconnectedness. We will explore how anti-intellectualism harms society at both local and global levels, and why this trend presents a significant obstacle to addressing the pressing challenges of our time. The roots of anti-intellectualism in American culture can be traced to early religious and philosophical ideas that emphasized faith over reason, authority over inquiry, and the individual over the collective. Evangelical Christianity, with its emphasis on sola scriptura, or scripture alone, is one such tradition that shaped the American landscape. The evangelical focus on personal revelation and direct access to God's truth often stands in opposition to intellectual traditions that rely on reason, debate, and critical inquiry. The Bible, as the ultimate source of truth, left little room for questioning or reinterpreting knowledge that didn't align with its teachings. In this view, intellectual pursuits that deviated from biblical doctrine were seen as dangerous, even heretical. This intellectual skepticism towards secular knowledge has been further reinforced by the American political tradition, particularly in populist movements. As historian Richard Hofstadter explained in Anti-Intellectualism in American Life, intellectuals have long been regarded with suspicion, viewed as detached from the everyday concerns of ordinary people. In American populism, there has been a recurring belief that intellectuals, especially those in academia, were elitist, condescending, and out of touch with struggles of common folk. This sentiment is deeply embedded in the fabric of American political discourse, where figures who reject expertise and champion common sense are often celebrated as more authentic and genuine. The figure of the anti-intellectual in American politics is not simply someone who opposes academic elites, but someone who sees intellectualism as a threat to the moral and social order. This belief is compounded by the theological narratives of sin and redemption, which view intellectual curiosity, when unchecked, as a form of spiritual pride. The ultimate archetype of this rejection can be seen in the figure of Faust from Goethe's Faust, who seeks knowledge and power outside the confines of moral or spiritual discipline. Faust's pact with the devil for knowledge ultimately leads to his ruin, symbolizing the dangers of intellectual pursuit without ethical grounding. In many ways, the Faustian narrative echoes throughout the populist right's critique of intellectualism, portraying intellectual curiosity as potentially dangerous and corrupting. Richard Dawkins' concept of the meme offers a useful framework for understanding how anti-intellectualism spreads through society. Memes, in Dawkins' theory, are cultural units of information that replicate from person to person, adapting and evolving as they go. They can be thought of as ideas, behaviors, or styles that spread within a society. Much like genes pass down traits across generations, anti intellectualism functions as a cultural meme, a set of beliefs and attitudes that are transmitted through social interactions, political discourse, and the media. These memes are particularly resilient because they simplify complex issues, making them more accessible to the average person, while also catering to emotional rather than rational responses. Dawkins asserts that memes are selfish and that they are primarily concerned with their own replication, rather than with the truth or utility of the ideas they represent. Anti intellectualism is a meme that thrives on emotional appeal rather than factual accuracy. It capitalizes on feelings of frustration, insecurity, and fear, particularly among people who feel left behind by technological, social, or economic changes. By rejecting expertise and embracing a simplified, emotionally satisfying worldview, anti intellectualism gains traction in a society that increasingly values quick solutions over thoughtful deliberation. The populist right in the United States has been particularly adept at spreading this meme. Politicians and pundits and media figures who dismiss expert opinions and promote conspiracy theories often find an eager audience among people who feel alienated from the complexities of modern life. These figures present themselves as the voice of common sense, positioning intellectuals as out of touch, elites who only serve to complicate matters rather than a resource, where knowledge is viewed with suspicion and where critical thinking is discouraged in favor of simple, appealing answers. Michel Foucault's concept of discourse provides an important tool for understanding how anti intellectualism becomes institutionalized and permeates social structures. Discourse, for Foucault, refers to the ways in which knowledge, power, and social norms are intertwined through language and communication. Discourses shape how we perceive the world, what we consider to be true or acceptable, and how social institutions are organized. Foucault argued that power is not only exerted through laws and institutions, but also through the regulation of what is considered legitimate knowledge and thought. In this sense, discourses of anti intellectualism function as a form of power, shaping public perceptions and institutional practices. The anti intellectual discourse prevalent in America is not merely a collection of individual attitudes, but a broader institutionalized framework that pervades political, media, and emotional systems. Through repeated use in political rhetoric, media representations, and popular culture, this discourse becomes normalized, shaping the way society views intellectuals, expertise, and knowledge. Intellectuals are often portrayed as arrogant, out of touch, or elitist, while anti intellectualism is presented as a form of common sense and authenticity. This creates a discursive regularity, where questioning authority or promoting nuanced understanding is viewed as suspicious or subversive. Foucault's analysis helps us understand how anti intellectualism, despite its harm, becomes self reinforcing. Once institutionalized, this discourse makes it harder for alternative viewpoints to be heard. The rejection of expertise becomes part of the fabric of public debate, and expertise itself is delegitimized. In such an environment, policies based on evidence and reason are increasingly difficult to implement, as political leaders must now cater to an electorate that has been conditioned to distrust intellectuals. And this is actually a very individualistic endeavor. The rise of anti intellectualism within the populist right has profound consequences for both American society and the broader global context. At a societal level, the rejection of expertise weakens the foundations of democratic decision making. In a democracy, informed debate is essential for the formulation of policies that reflect the needs of the people. However, When expertise is dismissed in favor of emotional appeals and populist rhetoric, public policy decisions are no longer guided by reason and evidence, but by political expediency and ideological agendas. The populist right's anti-intellectualism undermines efforts to address key societal challenges, such as public health, climate change, and education. Take climate change as an example. Despite overwhelming scientific consensus on the dangers of global warming, anti-intellectual sentiment has led many to reject or downplay the issue. Politicians who deny the science behind climate change have been able to gain traction by appealing to voters who are distrustful of experts. The result is policy paralysis, where necessary measures to mitigate climate change are postponed or ignored, exacerbating an already dire global crisis. In public health, the rejection of expertise has had similarly disastrous effects. The COVID-19 pandemic revealed just how dangerous anti-intellectualism can be when it leads to the rejection of scientific evidence in favor of conspiracy theories and misinformation. Individuals who are distrustful of public health experts are less likely to follow guidelines on vaccinations, social distancing, and mask wearing, putting not only their own lives at risk but the lives of others as well. This rejection of expertise erodes the collective responsibility necessary to combat global health threats, further fragmenting society. On a global scale, the populist right's embrace of anti-intellectualism poses a significant threat to international cooperation and the shared solutions required to address global challenges. Problems like climate change, pandemics, and geopolitical instability require collaborative evidence-based action. Anti-intellectualism, however, fosters a worldview that prioritizes national self-interest and ideological purity over collective action. This narrow, self-interested rationality, as Richard Dawkins argued in The Selfish Gene, undermines cooperation and hinders progress towards shared goals. In a world that is increasingly interconnected, such attitudes endanger the very survival of our global society. Buddhism offers a powerful critique of anti-intellectualism by emphasizing the importance of wisdom or prajna and the interconnectedness of all beings. In Buddhist thought, wisdom is not merely the accumulation of knowledge, but the ability to see beyond personal biases and ego-driven desires. The Buddha's teachings encourage critical thinking and the cultivation of awareness, urging individuals to question assumptions and attachments. Buddhism also emphasizes the interconnectedness of all things, teaching that individual actions have far-reaching consequences. Anti-intellectualism, which promotes a narrow, self-interested worldview, stands in direct opposition to this understanding of interconnectedness. When we reject intellectualism in favor of simplistic, emotionally satisfying answers, we disregard the broader impact of our choices on others and on the planet. Buddhism calls for mindfulness and compassion, both of which require the kind of critical inquiry and engagement with knowledge that anti-intellectualism seeks to undermine. The anti-intellectualism promoted by America's populist right is not merely a political or ideological stance, but a cultural force that undermines the capacity for reasoned debate, informed decision-making, and global cooperation. Rooted in historical, religious, and philosophical traditions, this anti-intellectual meme spreads through discursive regularities, institutionalizing a worldview that privileges narrow self-interest over collective well-being. The consequences of this trend are severe. From public health to climate change, the rejection of expertise and knowledge has resulted in policies that exacerbate existing crises and hinder efforts to address pressing global challenges. Buddhism offers an important corrective, calling for wisdom, critical inquiry, and an awareness of interconnectedness. In a world facing unprecedented challenges, the rejection of intellectualism is not only a political issue, but a moral and spiritual one. To ensure a better future for ourselves and for future generations, we must resist the pull of anti-intellectualism and embrace a worldview grounded in wisdom, compassion, and shared responsibility. Well, my dear YouTube Sangha, if you got something out of this and you have a question or a comment, please leave a comment. And if you like this video, please leave a like. And if you got something out of this and you like the series so far and you would like to see what's up next in this series, please subscribe. And until next time, and if you've gotten this far, sadhu 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 to you.